is Jangir and I'm here to present load testing using Jmeter. Jmeter performance testing is the combination of two tests, that is load test and stress test. And let's talk about load test. What is load testing? Load testing is the modeling of the expected usage by simulating multiple user access the web services concurrently. What does it mean? It means that we have to test the system under the top load it was designed to operate under. And the other jargon is stress testing. Every web server has a maximum load capacity. When the load goes beyond the limit, the web server starts responding slowly and produce error, and sometimes it goes down. The purpose of the stress testing is to find the maximum load the web server can handle. Apache Jmeter is an open source software. It is 100% pure Java application for load testing and performance testing. Jmeter is designed to cover categories of tests like load, functional, performance, regression, etc. But here we are only talk about performance testing. Jmeter can be used to test the performance of both static and dynamic resources. Static resources such as JavaScript and HTML, as well as dynamic resources such as JSPs, servlets, and Ajax. Jmeter can discover maximum number of concurrent users that our website can handle. Jmeter also provides a variety of graphical analysis of performance reports such as graph reports, table reports, etc. Jmeter was developed by Stefano Mazzecchi, who was a software developer at Apache Software Foundation. And Jmeter consists of four main components, that is thread groups, samplers, logic controllers, and listeners. What are thread groups? Thread groups are simple group of users who are sending a request to a web server on a specific URL to test a particular website. And samplers are basically protocols which Jmeter supports. Jmeter supports wide range of protocols like web protocols, HTTP, HTTPS, REST API protocol, SOAP protocol, FTP protocols, database protocol like JDBC, and so on. And third feature is logic controllers. Logic controllers are basically programming logic which we can implement in GUI based Jmeter. Like we only select options for logic, and they are basically loops, if-else conditions, but it's a very advanced feature of Jmeter, and it's rarely used in real-time load or performance testing. And fourth component is listeners. Listeners are basically output of Jmeter, which we can get in tables, graphs, and listeners let us view the results of samplers in the form of table, graphs, trees, or simple text files in some log files. Here is a simple illustration of Jmeter works. In this lecture, Jmeter, it consists of a test plan, and here we created a test plan, and then the user, one user, two user, and they are a single thread group, and each user is a single thread. It sends request to a server, and server receives a request and give a response to user. After a particular time period, user 2 sends request to server, and server responds to him, and so on to up to end users. This is the Apache Jmeter download link, and but one thing to consider that Apache Jmeter runs on Java JDK, and you have to install first Java JDK version 8 plus, so Jmeter can run smoothly on your system, either you are using Windows, Mac, or Linux. And if you are using Windows, then after installation you have to go to Jmeter file, Jmeter folder, and there is a file jmeter.bat in your bin folder of Jmeter directory, and you have to run that file. So in this way your Jmeter can start running. Here this is a simple test plan. How can you create a simple test plan for your performance testing project. First you have to add thread groups in your test plan, then add Jmeter elements like samplers, listeners, and then you have to add a listener, which is a graph result, and then you have to run the test. This is the complete roadmap of your test plan. Before testing the performance target application, we should determine normal load, which is the average number of users visit that website, and heavy load. The heavy load is the maximum number of users visit the website. So we have to check these two loads. Now in order to start testing, first we have to run Jmeter, start Jmeter, then select test plan on the tree, and then add thread groups like this. And in thread group you have to specify number of threads, like here I specified 100 number of users to connect website. Then loop count, and loop count is a logical controller which is looping one user request 10 times. And ramp up period of 100 means that each request gets a time of 1 second. 100 means 100 seconds. So after a single request, Jmeter waits for 1 second and then allow user to or thread to request to send a request to a web server. Like this is illustration of ramp up period. User 1 send the request HTTP request to web server, and user 2, user 3 all are delayed for 1 second. Like ramp up period tells Jmeter how long to delay before starting the next user. For example, if we have 100 users and 100 second ramp up period, then the delay between starting users will be 1 second. And this is the formula for getting time. Let's not confuse with thread count and loop count. Thread count is basically a number of threads or number of users who are requesting a particular content to a web server. On the other hand, loop count is a loop, and for example, if we have a loop variable whose value is 10, then our one thread or one user is requesting a particular content from a web server 10 times. So it's different from thread count, and both are very different. After adding a thread group, we have to add samplers, just like web protocols or any other protocol. We have to add in our thread group to whom by we request to the server. And here we are adding HTTP request by right click on the thread group and selecting the samplers and their HTTP request, and then click on yes. After this this window appears in front of us, and we have to specify URL and path. And here if we want to specify path, then after specifying URL we have to can add in this field the path we want to specify. And the last step is adding listeners. We can add listener by right click on the test plan, add listeners and thread group. and graph results. Graph result are is a listener, and when we start running like this, when we start our test plan running, then the listener starts getting data from samplers and to start building the its graph. This picture is a test report, and let's understand this. At the bottom of this picture here, the blue is at the bottom of this picture we see statistics of, of our test which we executed. Black represents the total number of current samples sent to the server, and blue here the current average of all samples sent, and this is the line of it. Red the current standard deviation from it. This is the line of standard deviation. Green throughput rate, that represents the number of requests per minute the server handle. This is throughput, and here is the line of throughput. Throughput is the most important parameter. It represents the ability of the server to handle a heavy load. The higher the throughput is, the better is the performance. And deviation is shown in red. It indicates the deviation from the average. The smaller the deviation, the better the results. Let's get with some practical. Let's get started with the installation of Jmeter. First we have to install Java JDK. In this from this website we have to install Java Development Kit, which must be version 8 plus. Here is Java Development Kit SE14, which can be downloaded from here. I already have downloaded it, and now I'm not gonna to download it again. And after this we have to install Jmeter. From this website jmeter.apache.org we have to download Jmeter. This is images for installation. We have to download from the one which we have to download from here the file, like I'm downloading this binary. I already downloaded and I'm not gonna download again, so I gonna cancel it. After this, if you are using Windows, then you have to go to a specific folder in which you have installed your Jmeter. I installed in this drive Jmeter, and in the bin folder the file with extension .bat. Here is the file. We should run this and it will start our Jmeter. It will take a little bit of time. So the Jmeter is starting. Here's the GUI of Jmeter, and here's test plan. I'm gonna name it this testing the ROS. I'm here testtheros.com. You can comment if you want to comment here. You can comment anything that you want. I'm commenting that I'm gonna test from testing on the ROS. So after I'm gonna add thread group. Number of threads 100, ramp up cycle 100 seconds, and loop count 10 times. So here's the option that action to be taken after sample error. If your protocol gives error like 404 something else, that what should they do? It like test plan should continue, start next thread loop, stop thread, stop test, stop test now. Which you want? I want to continue, so I checked continue. Now I want to here add samples like HTTP request. This is if you want to use HTTPS, then you have to specify here HTTPS, and here is the URL which you want to test. Let me check my URL. So this is URL. I want to copy and paste in my Jmeter. As port number, if you have a port number, then you can specify and HTTP request like method get post head and so on. But there's only get request I'm sending to the server. Path, there's no path I want to specify, so I'm leaving it empty. After this, I'm adding listeners. Now I'm start running my test plan. This is asking me to wait to save this test plan after test executed. So it is saving in the same folder in which jmeter.bat file lies. writing a bit more complex test plan. Previously, test plan was very simple. Now let's look at a little bit complex test plan. Again, I'm testing the RAS website, and here's HTTP request. If in this field, if you testing HTTP website, then there is no need to fill this. But if you are testing HTTPS, then you have to specify in this field. And this is a URL, and this is a path. Let me add listeners. Now I'm adding 3 to 4 listeners so that we can view our results in 3 to 4 different formats. I'm adding view results in tree and graph results. And now I'm running my test, but firstly I have to specify number of threads. Let's suppose 100 number of users and 100 timestamps and 10 row count. Let's start running this. Now I can view my results in any of the format. So here are the test results coming in, and this is the progress of testing. This is the time in which testing is going on. Let's look at this table. It is a sample numbers from 1 to 100. I mean users, experience users, user request, and this is start time column. Start time. This is thread name, thread group. We can specify a specific name for each thread groups. Then this is a label, that is which it is. It is about request. Either it is a HTTP request or HTTPS request. This is a sample time. Status, if it is a green, then it is its status is 200, or mean okay. If it's red cross, then it means there is something wrong with it, or our website cannot entertain this request. So it starts breaking the website. And here's the bytes, total bytes which we sent. I mean total bytes. It's a total bytes of the request. There is a send bytes of request and latency, and connect time in it's the time between request and response. Each time is in milliseconds. So look at all the requests have a red cross signs. It means that these requests doesn't responded by server properly. As in any of your results. You can click on it and see the details of this request. Now I think we should stop the testing.
Hi, my name is Mohammad Samir, and me, being the groupmate of Mr. Jahangir, I would like to demonstrate the testing of an API using a Jmeter. So before monitoring the practical demonstration of the API testing, first understand what an API is. API is the acronym for Application Programming Interface. When you use an application on your mobile phone, the application connects to the internet and sends the data to a server. The server then retrieves that data, interprets it, and performs the necessary actions, and then sends it back onto your phone. The application then interprets the data and presents you with the information you wanted in a readable way. This is what an API is. All of this happens via an API. To explain this better, an example: imagine you are sitting at a table in a restaurant with a menu of choices to order from. The kitchen is the part of the system that will prepare your order. What is missing is the critical link to communicate your order to the kitchen and deliver your food back to your table. That's where the waiter or an API comes in. The waiter is the messenger or API that takes your request or order to tell the kitchen, the system, what to do. Then waiter delivers the response back to your table. Here's a real-life API example. You may be familiar with the process of searching flights online. Let us imagine that you are booking your flight through an airline website. You choose a departure city, return city, cabin class, and other variables. In order to book your flight, you interact with the airline's website to access their database and see if any seats are available on those dates, and the database returns the cost of that seat. However, what if you are not using an airline's website, a channel that has a direct access to the information? The travel service in this case interacts with the airline's API. The API is the interface that, like your helpful waiter, can be asked by that online travel service to get information from the airline's database to book the seats, baggage options, etc. The API takes the credentials and airline responses to your request and deliver it right back to your online travel service. Now, let's move on to what is the purpose of testing an API. API testing is a software testing type that validates the application programming interface. The purpose of API testing is to check the functionality, reliability, performance, and security of the programming interfaces. In API testing, instead of using standard user inputs and outputs, you use the software to send the calls to the API, get the output, and note down the system response. API tests are very different from GUI tests and won't concentrate on the look and feel of an application. It mainly concentrates on the business logic layer of the software architecture. Moving on, now, what are the differences between an API testing and unit testing? Following are the major differences between unit testing and API testing. For example, unit testing is done by the developers, where an API testing is done by the testers. In unit testing, a separate functionality is being tested, whereas in API testing, an end-to-end functionality is tested. A developer can access the source code in the unit testing, whereas the tester cannot access the source code. In unit testing, UI testing is also involved, whereas in API testing, only API functions are tested. The scope of the unit testing is limited, whereas in the API testing, the scope is taken in the broader spectrum. Now at last I would demonstrate you how an API is being tested using a Jmeter tool. So this is how a Jmeter looks like. So here is the test plan name. So I would be testing a weather API. So it's WEATHER weather API testing. And here I would add a thread group. In thread group, I would like to add a sampler. In sampler, you have different types of samplers you can use. JUnit request, Java request, JMS publisher, but we would be testing an API of HTTP. So here it is. And in this HTTP request, we need to specify the server name, the path, and the parameters involved. So I would add a new window, and here I would type weather API. You can use any API you want to test. So I am using this. I would sign in into this website. I've already made my account, so I am signed in. So I would go to the API and use this API doc of current weather data. So here are the types of API calls. I'm using the first one, would copy it and I would paste it in my browser. So here you can see there are two types of parameters, a queue in which the city name is being sent, and app ID, that is my API key. This API key is provided to me in my profile. In my profile there is API keys, and here the key is. I would copy it and paste it here, and I would specify the city name as Karachi. I would hit the enter. Where did I go wrong? Yes, here it is, the extra brackets. See, this is the response of the API. It's telling me the current temperature of Karachi with the coordinates, weather, and the base station, temperature, and much more. Now this request is now being tested through Jmeter. So in Jmeter, we would specify the server name. The server name here is API open weathermap.org. You would copy it, paste it in the server name. By default it's HTTP, so we are removing it. And then we would specify the path. The path is the data weather. So I would specify the path, and now here we would add the parameters. First parameter is Q, so we would add it in the specific order. So the Karachi was the value of this parameter, and the app ID was the second parameter. So I would copy my key from here and paste it in the value. Now in order to view my results, I would add a listener, and you can display your results in different types. I would tell you about this, but first I would view the results in the tree form. So this is the tree form, and I would hit the test. It says save the yes. So here's the OK status of my API request. It says the response code was 200 and 200 represents OK, and the result was in the response data. So here is all the output that is generated from my API call, and it's working fine. So we can display this in the graphical form as well. So we would run this again, and here it is. Sorry, let me do it again. I would add a listener, aggregated graph, play, and this is the graph. See, now this displays the milliseconds taken for the API request to travel from my PC to their server and from their server to the PC again. So this is how you test an API using the Jmeter. And hopefully I have demonstrated well enough to tell you that how an API is tested. Thank you.